All right, Renee, so we're talking about your
Sorry. Excited.
kitchen written assignment. What we'll do is we'll go over it and then I'll show you your scores.
Okay.
Okay?
Got it.
So we're going to start with the reflective statement on the interactive oral. On the whole, pretty good. I like how you've pointed out that there are 2 points that the oral brought to the fore, and that both of them are cultural and contextual. So one is the kind of women's liberation, if you will, and then you also have the what emotional acceptance or how emotions are received and perceived. Yeah. The primary suggestion to really get this to the highest mark would be to emphasize that you learned this in the interactive world, and by that I mean restate it again, perhaps with the second point.
Okay.
And you do, but maybe give some more examples from the interactive oral, because you took good notes, and less about the analysis.
Okay, so
Emphasize what you did and what you learned in the oral,
what learned
less
in oral
analysis of the novel.
Okay.
Okay.
About the novel itself. Okay.
Yeah, because the reflective statement, they want to see more reflection on the oral.
Mm-hmm.
The written assignment, obviously, is where the
Yeah.
analysis comes. Okay, so cool. Pretty easy. Moving on to your essay. To what extent does Mikage associate the kitchen with despair and in turn use it to feel joy? One of the comments that I'm making to everyone, and this goes beyond just this assignment, but in the future, when we're writing any kind of analysis, you'll typically start with a question like this.
Mm-hmm.
Write your paper, and typically we will find the answer or come up with an answer, an answer at the end of the essay, somewhere near there. That in turn can be used to subtly kind of tweak the introduction and kind of recast the essay. So all I'm saying is that you don't necessarily have to keep the question as your title, nor do you have to keep it as the laser focus of the essay if what you find, having answered the question, takes you in a slightly different direction. Just to
Okay.
free you up in the future.
Okay.
Okay? Just as suggestion.
Okay.
This is something that I've noticed. And you're not alone. With that said, 2 things. For the purpose of this paper, we really want to highlight that it's Yoshimoto who's who's making these decisions, if you will, right? And I know you do, but I'm going to come back and show you what I'm talking about. The second point is kind of ties in with what I just said. Your last sentence
Okay.
is probably one of the most clear statements about what you're saying, I think, in the paper.
Okay.
And it's good. The uncensored despair, the constant reminder of her ultimate loneliness, something that in the end was the one thing in the world that could allow her to go from the darkest despair to feeling wonderful. That's really nicely done. I like
That's
how
like
you.
a thesis, kind of.
It's pretty close
Yeah.
to your thesis.
Yeah.
The one thing that you don't have, as far as a thesis goes, or maybe 2 things, we don't see in here, I mean, this is a good concluding statement, but what I'm saying is a good thesis would have something like, it's the one thing that allows her to go from the darkest despair to feeling wonderful, beautiful. What we want is, what are the strategies, tools, devices that Yoshimoto uses to show that? Okay. I think you do a pretty good job with, you've got some excellent selections, scene selections, but we've got to,
I'm listening.
okay, I was going to let
Sorry,
you
no.
finish. No, no worries. You get a little verbose here and there. Yeah, thought you might like that one.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's a vocabulary word that means wordy.
I do get wordy.
You
I
get-
don't know why I do
It's
that.
okay.
I just don't like to say it. And then,
It's fine. It's a great way to get the juices flowing. But for a revision, I would say, like this kind of intro here, we can.
get rid of it.
Yep. And then some of the other stuff in the intro I've kind of highlighted. It's like, erupt. Erupt to state.
I don't.
Yeah. You can just say it.
I don't know what
You
goes
should,
on.
yeah.
I don't-
I don't judge.
I'm trying to make it interesting for the reader because I know this is not.
It is. It's incredibly interesting. No, seriously, I appreciate your verbosity as well as the insights that it brings. But for maximizing your score and
Yes.
clarity, we can lose it.
Okay.
Because part of it starts to get, you kind of say things that are like opposite of one another. It's a comprehensible notion as it contentiously brings positive connotation to the idea of despair by adorning it with a feeling of satisfaction. I guess I see what you're saying. It's not that it's going against its odds. It's just cut to the chase. She is making the claim that without knowing great sadness, you won't know great joy, right? And the insight that you provide that is really good, that I think needs to be at the center of this, is that the kitchen, which seems to be the nicest place and the place of greatest joy, is simultaneously that reminder of despair. So that's the word that I think, that's a word that I'd like to see maybe make its way in, is simultaneously, right? Suggesting that this thing happens at the same time. The other word that might help is juxtaposition, right? It's a nice one.
Juxtaposition.
Yep.
Mhm.
And that's literally holding these two seemingly different ideas up at the same time to kind of go, curious.
Mhm.
And I think that's what you're saying Yoshimoto does with the kitchen
Yeah.
for Mikage.
Yeah.
Okay?
So wait, it's like, what's another like literary term that you could use for that? That would be like, it's like a, I don't want to say paradox.
Yeah.
It's like a paradox
Mm-hmm.
because it seems like it's brings her great joy, and that's what it like acts as a symbol of her happiness. But at the same time, it's not really what it is.
Paradox is typically something that seems untrue at first, like impossible.
Yeah.
Like how could something that brings you sadness bring you great joy?
Yeah.
But upon further investigation or reflection, is true.
So paradox is not actually an actual thing, but it's like the idea that Yoshimoto simultaneously uses both of these is a paradox.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct.
Got
That
it.
the kitchen is a place of despair
Mhm.
and joy.
Yeah.
That's the
That's
paradox.
the paradox in it. Okay.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Got it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. So some of the other stuff that I've kind of highlighted is, again, I know you're getting your the juices are flowing.
Is that the second paragraph right there?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
Some of it gets a little redundant, I guess. With you're kind of saying the same thing, and it seems like you're trying it out, trying to figure out
What to say.
or how to say it. It's
Mhm.
not what. I mean,
Mhm.
it's the how to phrase this seeming paradox, and it's not easy. This is the next paragraph down. The it is a constant reminder. I highlighted this one because I'm not sure, and I could be wrong, but I'm not sure that her grandmother's kitchen was a place where there was family chatter and sound of cooking and laughing and the teasing, all of that. I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, I was looking at it as before her parents died.
Okay.
But I mean, prior to her grandmother's death, her and her grandmother were all alone.
Right.
And that was already gone, that idea.
Okay.
I could change it now.
You might not even need to change so much as explain, right? What you just said makes so much
Okay.
more sense.
Okay.
But the way it's written, the reason I've got it highlighted is because I don't want the reader to think that you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all I'm wanting to make sure.
Kitchen before parents' death.
Because these are great observations about how it is a reminder of despair. And so here are some of the ways that Yoshimoto is doing it. These images,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because it's a dirty kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And Mikage doesn't, she doesn't discriminate. She loves clean and dirty, she says. But
Mhm.
this kitchen in particular is dirty, and some of the descriptors of it make it sound somewhat less than desirable to me. You know, at least the way you've got it highlighted, you can continue to make that case, right? Turning your slippers black on the bottom, the vegetable droppings on the floor. It sounds gross.
Does sound gross.
Yeah,
Sounds like Maui Taco kitchen.
and that's not acceptable. That is
Health
unacceptable.
standards.
I'm just saying.
Seriously though.
It's where
You've
I
never
live.
been in the back of that kitchen. It's so nasty.
And scene. Okay. All right. So, cool.
Okay.
Then we got kind of a problem. Despite the fact that the kitchen acts as a beacon to remind Mikage of the despair she has, part of that sentence is what's weird is that it acts as a beacon to remind her of despair. I don't beacons are good things.
Okay. What's another word then?
I don't know.
Acts as a
Reminder?
just reminder for Mikage.
Constant reminder?
For Mikage. There we
Okay.
go. Much less wordy.
But we then kind of seems like we move back, and we start at the beginning of the book. The resilient love for the kitchen, and then despair. And then we have introducing Eriko. Okay. And I'm not even trying to come up with a solution now, but I just want to highlight or point out that I think now that you have identified this paradox,
Mm-hmm.
the organization and development should be easier if you want to do that, because essentially you can have a paragraph about how it acts as a reminder of despair, and then a paragraph how it's a beacon of joy, meh, because beacons are good,
Okay.
and then and maybe in between those two paragraphs is your catalyst, which would be Erica, and the philosophy
Okay.
that through despair comes joy.
Okay.
You could have Erica. Can you wait? If it's not to go to the restroom? Okay.
But, so, well, I mean, I'm wondering if, like, what if, because at first is the kitchen associated with despair and then joy, or is it joy and then despair?
It's up to you. It's up to you. How you want to frame it. And I mean, even in the introduction, that's really where you kind of introduce the idea of the paradox. And what seems like in a book that's titled Kitchen, and for a young woman who finds refuge in the kitchen, it is paradoxical that it also is a constant reminder of her aloneness. But through that, she finds joy.
Okay.
Okay?
So I think despair would be the first then.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. God bless you.
I hope I got that on camera, because that was a good sneeze. Hanky. All right. All right. So,
Is that kind of everything?
I think that's what I've got in green here is another example of where you've done some good work, and it's pretty clear. It's not overly worded, and you've done a nice job of analyzing some very brief quotes that you've incorporated. Just showing you. More like that.
Okay.
All right, so here you go. Like I said, bring in more of the details from the reflection. This is pretty good, and that comes primarily from your insight and realization that the kitchen is for kind of despairing. The appreciation of the author's choices will come with the revision of that organizational development, because once you get that organization worked out so that you're kind of handling it in a more straightforward fashion, that'll move to a 3 right away. And then by losing some of the wordiness, you're going to have room to develop these ideas more, which could simultaneously help bring up all 3 of these, but especially the development of the idea like you have here and like you have at the beginning with this notion of despair and joy. Okay?
Okay.
And the use of language will also come up when you lose the
Wordiness.
and it's precision is what they're looking for. It's not that they don't like $5 vocabulary words. It's just you don't need extra vocab.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Questions for me?
Not really. Not that I can think of right now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you've taken notes and you'll have this to refer to as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
You know what?
Please stop recording.